Zocdoc is amazing because there are thousands of top-rated doctors, and they are all listed with verified patient reviews, so you can find and book a doctor who not only has years of experience and an actual medical degree, but also just gets you. Zocdoc is also free. Did I mention that? Okay, it's free, and you can find amazing doctors, and you can book appointments. These are, once again, thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed doctors and specialists. You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition you're searching for. These doctors have verified reviews from real patients, not bots, and the average wait time to see a doctor booked on Zocdoc is between 24 to 48 hours. That's it, okay? I mean, you can even score same-day appointments. Go to Zocdoc.com/BCC and download the Zocdoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/BCC. Zocdoc.com/BCC.
Welcome to The Chain.
We're your hosts. I'm Kendahl.
And I'm Sarah Schauer. And today we're joined by
Claire Parker
and Ashley Hamilton
of the
Celebrity Memoir Book Club.
Wow, Sarah's like losing their mind right now.
This is they're literally my favorite like podcast ever. And we actually, and I don't want to like be, I'm trying not to be weird, but like, yeah, when we were like coming up with like concepts for our podcast, we were like, we need something unique. Like who has and you guys like have such a unique take on podcasts, because usually it's just like shooting the shit or we're talking about something. You guys actually invest time.
Well, unfortunately, only because we had to. This is our third podcast. I mean, anybody who listens knows that this is our third attempt at a podcast. And we wanted so badly to just be like former Bachelor contestants who could come and talk about nothing and people were invested. But we were so unfamous and unlikable that we had to be like, well, what if we told you something you wanted to know? Would that get you to listen? And
would you like me then if I told you information?
What if I did a book report a week? Would we get an A?
What if I called a celebrity a dumb slut? Would you like me then?
Yeah, probably. Wait, what were the other two podcasts that you guys tried?
So first was Who's With Tabs, which stood for, hold on one second, we're talking about Britney Spears.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we were going like album by album through Britney Spears' discography and through the notable moments in her career.
But tell them the truth.
We were mostly talking about nothing, but then at the end of every episode, we went song by song.
I mean, we went song by song at minute 41 of a 48-minute episode. We'd literally talk about what we did that week, and then suddenly it'd be like hour 2. We'd be like, oh my God, should we talk about Britney?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, this week on the VMAs, she did a backflip. Okay, see you next week.
No, seriously.
So we did that, and that we ended actually when the Free Britney movement started, because we got pretty freaked out about our place in the Britney gossip mill and like at this point everything was unconfirmed. It was just she walked off the stage when she was supposed to announce a new Vegas residency and everyone was like, what does it mean? I think she's a prisoner.
And then she went missing for a few months. And then there was another Britney podcast that had this insider scoop from a paralegal who worked on her team who did this anonymous voice note being like, no, she's being held captive. And then there was a lot of back and forth in the rumor mill, and we were just like, you know what? We are comedians. We are not lawyers. We aren't even like, people would beg us to learn a fact every week in our reviews. They'd be like, we love your podcast, but we're begging you, look one thing up. And we were like, no.
They're like, how did you pronounce Britney Spears wrong this week?
I love the thought of you two being in the documentary. Like, they're like, oh, there's two Britney Spears podcasters, and it's you two just like, it's cutting to you just talking about your dating lives.
Yeah. That's like, literally what the show was. It was crazy. And we would do every week, we would be like, how was your week like Britney? And we would just talk about our weeks, but like
through
pretend that we were talking about Britney Spears. We'd be like, oh, this week I wore like khaki cargo pants from Kohl's as Britney would.
Oh, yeah. Or like,
incredible.
I called my dad, as I usually don't, much like Britney would not want to. Yeah.
Literally, that was how it went. Yeah. And I think our lowest moment was somebody was a lawyer who listened and actually sent us a document from the court case and like explained it to us and was like, here's what this document means. Here's what's going on with the Free Britney thing.
And we got it completely wrong.
We were like, wait a minute. I think it means the opposite. And she had to be like, no. And yet when I told you I'm a lawyer. And we were like, oh, sorry.
We're going to not do the podcast anymore.
We were like, allergic to facts. And we were like, I don't think it's I don't think we're the people you want in your army. So we did a second podcast called We're in a Fight with Claire and Ashley
because at that point, so when we started the Britney podcast, we kind of barely knew each other. And by the end of the Britney podcast, after I think we did 88 episodes, we were best friends.
That is so many.
I know. It was crazy.
I thought you were going to be like, we did an episode, didn't work out, so then we did another one, didn't work
for
out.
sure, like a year and a half. And then
when we went straight into our next podcast that we thought was going to be a hit, and we actually went from like, we were getting like 700 listens at the end of our Britney pod, and then we lost a lot of them. We like went down from there.
So it was called We're in a Fight with Claire and Ashley, and it was a podcast about how you can scream at your friends but still love them.
It was supposed to be like looking at female friendship through the way that people look at dating. Because I don't know how many people have been caught in a group chat of college friends, and all of you kind of hate each other, but nobody's allowed to admit it, and you're all bridesmaids in each other. Like the complexities of a friend breakup.
Because you can't really just break up. You can't just say I'm not feeling it anymore, which is so hard. Like I've had friends where I'm like, we've been friends for 10 years and you've done nothing wrong. We just like have nothing in common anymore. We're not in the same place. It's hard to connect with you. We don't like hanging out, but we still have to. And you can't just be like, this is done.
No, like you can't, like going through the motions feels so insane, but like to act, because it's not like with a normal monogamous relationship culture where you're like, okay, well, I can only have one. So if I don't want to be dating you, I have to break up with you. With friends, for someone to be like, oh, I like kind of like don't even want to be texting you memes anymore is like so aggressive.
It's very much that Britney Spears
but it's not
thing where you're like, I
aggressive.
haven't seen you in a year, but the idea of going to Miami once is like making me so resentful. And then you have the friends, and you're like, well, what happens to our mutuals? And it's like when you're in that group chat where you're like, well, I can't only invite 4 of the 5 of you because that's so mean. So now I have this person that I can't stand that's just, it's getting, I don't know. So we wanted to talk about that, and it went so badly. I cannot tell you the way it blew up in our face.
Well, because we structured it around fighting instead of the good parts of friendship and conflict resolution. And so it was because we argue a lot. We used to argue a lot more.
It freaks people out. One time we cleared out a Super Bowl party over a fight about who should get to use the phone charger. And it made people so uncomfortable. We were at somebody else's party. It made people so uncomfortable that like everyone just had to leave.
But do you find that you have a healthy friendship?
Now that we're successful, success has been so good for us. We didn't.
Said us poor was not good for us.
It's not.
I will say, because then we would like invest a lot of time and or money in projects. And then if they like weren't going well, we would like start blaming each other, or like, because also when we were trying to improve things, we would be like, okay, well, this really didn't work out, but it would come off sometimes as quite attacky. And we weren't necessarily good at resolving conflict in those situations, especially because we were stressed by the fact that we both had full-time day jobs. We were trying to put out projects together. We were spending, like I said, money and time that we like did not have on these projects.
We had a summer where we both like went through breakups and were single, and then we both lost our job like within a week of each other, and we spent the whole summer working on this web series that we really thought was gonna like turn it around for us. That was it's the worst thing on YouTube, if you can believe it.
What's it called? Can I look it up?
Bitchnesses.
Perfect.
Just 2 bitches running a business. We spent $5,000 on it. Money that like
we did
was like
not
all
have.
of like all of our savings went into this project because we really thought it was going to be our
we thought it was gonna be our Broad City.
Yeah. I don't know why I was like blanking on the Insecure. We thought it would be our Insecure.
Yeah.
We were like, we put out this YouTube series and
it'll
HBO.
be on HBO next year.
And the way that I can't even begin to list what went wrong. First of all, we never read the scripts out loud.
Talking about it. You know that when we talk about it, I start crying.
No.
We just put a lot of energy into the wrong things. Like we thought it was really important to have a live snake for this one cutaway gag, but we never actually did a table read. And I think going
because you're dreaming big.
Yeah, and we were like, well, it just won't be funny if there's not a live snake. And then you know what? It wasn't funny because we made it so we really kept thinking, okay, because we were deranged, right? It was a summer where we were alone together.
It's hot.
Every
it was
day.
literally just the two of us meeting up every day at this coffee shop that hated us. And it was
Were you guys like reading what you wrote out loud?
Yeah, but to each other. And then like the problem is we'd go through and through and through and like add more and more inside jokes. We thought it was going to be like Arrested Development.
We need more inside jokes.
Okay, so we literally, this is why Ashley has to start crying, because we were writing it with this mindset of it's going to be such a cult classic that people are going to be able to rewatch it time and time again and find jokes they didn't see the first time. But the problem was we like didn't write, like there wasn't a first time. Like it came out kind of incoherent. And then another big problem was we hired this woman, first mistake, to be our DP, and she used a camera that she had never used before. And
she kept on turning it off when she thought she was pressing play.
And then she also was obsessed with getting like dynamic shots where she would like miss the action. So she would want to follow us sitting down, but she'd be a step behind. So we'd be in shot and then sit down. And then like a second later, the camera would pull, like
it's like a millennial transition on TikTok.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was always a step behind. So she missed a lot of the action. Literally we have a scene where she goes rolling action and turns it off, and we have audio, and then she goes and cut, and then the camera comes back on. So we also then had to cut out like a lot of stuff because we just literally did not have
like the context for an already like convoluted thing. The context would like go missing because the camera missed it, and so we'd have to choose shots based on like what was in focus, not what made sense and might have even been almost good.
But we did have the live snake, which cost us $100.
Honestly, that feels cheap to me. For a snake.
Yeah, I mean, it was like kind of under. It wasn't SAG.
It was like a rental.
Yeah, he hadn't. His reel wasn't
It
good
was
enough
like
to get
from
a
a
good
guy
job.
that Claire's hairdresser knows.
Perfect.
We were literally like, would you come to Tribeca for $100 and bring your snake? We got one shot. I will say, if you read the script, I think the snake is introed like, Claire gets a hot dog. On second thought, she gets a second hot dog for the snake. And we had one person who read it and he goes, where'd the snake come from? The first time you hear about the snake, she's buying it a hot dog. And we were like, yeah, we literally were like, it would make sense when you see it filmed. It'll make sense visually.
So funny.
It'll make sense for Claire to just have a snake and 2 hot dogs.
You think it's gonna be a cult classic? That's like such a big statement.
What's that one movie that's supposed to be bad?
Room.
The Room.
It's either called The Room is the one with Jacob Tremblay, right? And then Room.
That other girl, Brie Larson.
And then
can I say,
Room.
it went from being the first room to the room. It was my The Room. I felt like I was being held hostage by my own idiocy.
And that's the thing is we were editing it and like watching it and being like, we know this is so bad, but we spent so much money that we have to finish it and put it out. And it took us like a year to edit because we like fought so much.
But which is so hard because then a year later, what you thought was bad a year later, you're going to think is even. I mean, the longer you wait, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
I would have like chopped it up into B-roll and then put it on like a B-roll site.
Okay, so one thing that we tried to do,
we did try to salvage.
We tried to salvage it by creating a second web series.
Perfect.
Called Bitchnesses What Went Wrong, where we would sit in front of a green screen and do a play-by-play about why.
Honestly, that is fun.
Our web series was so bad, and we fought so much, we just had to walk away.
There was one.
There was like this whole inside joke about it being like an empty lecture hall from Spider-Man.
Yeah, because I shot that at Columbia, and we were like, well, we could just take the train up there, and like, but then I mean, it is. I will say, filming something with somebody, trying to co-direct is one of the most eye-opening experiences about how different visions can be. Mm-hmm. Because you could talk to somebody about every single thing, and then the tiniest little thing comes up, and it's so clear to you why it should be one way and not. It's like I just had a wedding. It reminds me of throwing a wedding, and that like you cannot believe how many details people can feel so passionately different about that you wouldn't have even thought you had an opinion on, but you're like ready to cut off an ant. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, that's like why I always, because my friend and I made a short film, and I feel like when you have it was a similar thing. We invested I think we put $15,000 into it. Both of us started with $10,000 worth of credit card debt. So that's what we were starting with.
Awesome.
And we said, let's keep it going. Yeah. We got one stimulus check.
Yes.
This is just so
That was $1,600, right? Or $800?
$1,600. It was more money than I'd ever had in my life. We were in so much debt, and we both started conspiring about we wanted to hire someone to paint a nude portrait of us to hang over our bathroom, like our toilet, because we were like, this is what people with money do. We need to do this. We were in so much debt. We only had $1,600. This is when we spent $15,000 on this film. And so when you have no money, you're like, what's the first thing that should be cut? Maybe a director, because you're like, I could do it. But I'm always like, you gotta get a director, because it really you're able to I would never want to be a director because I'm like, you're the villain. Like, everyone is going to want to fucking kill you. Yeah. Especially with projects like this where the writers are also the actors and all of that. And but then it's all at this person, and you two can be like, we're on the same team. Like, we wrote this and we have the same vision, even if they're totally different, but the director is the one who's not doing it.
We should that's what we need to do. We need to find a common enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to
That's
get a
so
third
true.
person on your podcast who you just are like, who hasn't
Cannot
read the
stand.
books,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like you're just like, fuck you.
And now we don't really fight that much. I
It's
feel like
much
we've been
better.
pretty good.
I will say we've gotten so much better because I do think like with the podcast doing well, we've been down and out, and it's so funny. Sometimes people will be like, "We're worried you're gonna call her daddy each other," and I'm like, first of all, I would for $60 million, I would break up with Ashley, I guess, but it would take that much, and I'm like, you don't understand what we've been through. We survived bitchnesses. Money isn't gonna break us up because we mostly spend all of our money to hang out with each other, so it's kind of the same pool.
Yeah, and when people are like, "Oh, like now that people like listen to your podcast and you guys like it's our full-time job now," people are like, "Oh, I don't like." People don't realize that we were doing this for free. Like we were spending our money to do what we're doing now for years before anyone was paying us to do it, and so like the money isn't like why we're in it. You know what I mean? We just like hanging out.
Yeah.
Do you ever have those days where you're like, why am I the only person on earth who always has something wrong with their body? I was sick last week, and then I stubbed my toe and broke it, and it hurt so bad. And then my eyes were doing this weird thing, and it was making me nauseous, and then that ended, and then a new thing, I had a toothache. It just never ends, and I'm like, why am I always sick? And when you're sick like that, and you don't have a doctor, things can really add up, and that's why... Drum roll, please. Today's episode is sponsored by Zocdoc, but I am serious about what I was saying. I feel like I am always sick. I always have something going on. I'm always injuring myself. But you know what? I'm going to stop with the pity party. I'm going to wipe my tears. I'm putting away the ice cream, and I'm heading over to Zocdoc to find and book the doctor who is right for me and takes my insurance. Zocdoc is amazing because there are thousands of top-rated doctors, and they are all listed with verified patient reviews, so you can find and book a doctor who not only has years of experience and an actual medical degree, but also just gets you. Zocdoc is also free. Did I mention that? Okay, it's free, and you can find amazing doctors, and you can book appointments. These are, once again, thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed doctors and specialists. You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition you're searching for. These doctors have verified reviews from real patients, not bots, and the average wait time to see a doctor booked on Zocdoc is between 24 to 48 hours. That's it, okay? I mean, you can even score same-day appointments. Go to Zocdoc.com/BCC and download the Zocdoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/BCC. Zocdoc.com/BCC.
So you guys are now Celebrity Memoir Book Club. How did you originally get the idea transitioning from this bitchnesses and Britney? Were you like, I just have this affinity for like celebrities, or did you like reading and then you were like, this makes sense?
We don't even know how to read.
We're like looking at the books and just guesstimating.
We're both dyslexic.
Well, because Sarah, when we were first like pitching around ideas, Sarah kept bringing up Celebrity Memoir Book Club, and I kept being like, that sounds amazing. I can't read. Like, we can't do that.
Oh, but I wasn't saying like we should literally read.
No, of course, but I was like, anything that would even be where I would have to read articles. We did an episode the other day I think is so funny because it's about queer baiting.
Yeah.
And it is so funny to me because our wonderful research assistant put like 30 shows where queer baiting had happened. Mm-hmm. The episode, I seriously love it. It's just us going from one to one and going, did you watch that? No. No. Did you watch that? No. Like I'm like, no research. I couldn't, even though they've done the research. I said, I can't
you don't even have to do research. The research has been done, but you're like, I can't look at the research.
Where did you guys fall on queer baiting? You like it or no?
We love it. We're really pro queer baiting.
We know
We'll should do it more.
Like, queer baiting is like a movie, like TV term, but I know it's been applied to like real people, which you shouldn't. But you know how meanings get changed. So I think it's not good.
Well, and it's hard because now.
Well, let me ask you this: in 7th grade, when I was kissing this girl Josie for $1 for male attention, is that queer baiting?
Yes.
It's queer baiting if you're baiting straight people.
Well, you're just baiting a straight man. Oh, wait, no, that's not queer baiting.
Right? I wasn't doing it for the gays. I was doing it for the straights specifically.
I think if men had been paying you, that could have been queer.
And they filmed it?
And they filmed it, and then they sold it. I think this is where it gets complicated.
We're not selling it to the gays.
Well, right, so then no.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I've always said justice for me in 7th grade.
Yes.
When I knew that sitting on a girl's...
Who's telling you this? that you've been
I'm on
Sitting-
Twitter and I'm worried about it.
No.
Sitting on a girl's what?
Laps.
Oh, it's like it's 7th grade. Jesus.
Well, this is where like it gets complicated because now there are people who are an individual that are now, but it's like, okay, Harry Styles, for example. I'm not even talking about him queer baiting, but we don't have to open up that can of worms because we got to talk about Celebrity Memoirs.
Yes.
But he is a person, yes, but he's also
A brand.
Yeah.
and he makes a lot of money. So it's like I don't want to objectify you and say you're not a person, but you make so much money off of the queer community. So it starts to change where it's like, I don't think like a girl I went to middle school with can be queer baiting.
Well, justice for me. I'm so excited to cross that off.
You're the victim here.
Yeah.
I've always
God.
said
Thank God. But sorry, did not mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
So you can't read, you said.
Oh, yeah.
I think
no.
I interrupted
Okay.
you because I wanted just vindication for me.
Totally. So we started Celebrity Memoir Book Club because we had done, hold on one second, we're talking about Britney Spears, and we had fun doing it. No one really listened to it, but we
knew that was better than talking about ourselves and fighting every week. Because
we love talking about celebrities. We love celebrity gossip. We love celebrity culture. I think there's a lot to be analyzed in like celebrity gossip culture
But the
that
thing that-
reflects upon the world today.
But the thing that really affected us about the Britney Spears and why we stopped, because of course everybody's like, why would you stop now? Now's when everyone's interested in Britney again. This is like when you get all the listens. And
We
we were
said
like,
we don't know who Britney Spears is.
who are you talking about? I was like, I can't even find her on Google. Was that who I kissed for the dollar? I can't.
Yeah.
It's not ringing a bell, but we really were like, seeing what she had gone through, we were like, how do you talk about celebrities in a way that's ethical? And we talk about like the ethical consumption of pop culture.
Yeah.
OnlyFans was on the rise at the time. And we were just like, yeah, how do we like judge people in a way that feels above board? Because I do think a lot of these people have a lot of power, make a lot of choices, and can be problematic. And I'm not saying every woman in celebrity is above judgment just because we're kind of hard on people. But I also am like, let's
we
put it
should
into
be-
context. Let's
yeah.
let's go beyond the headlines. Let's stop digging through people's trash. A lot of times if you give people rope, they'll hang themselves.
I think that's a great. I've noticed the people with what's that true crime? They're having. I feel like if they took your route, like read the books written by the families.
Yes.
That would be a way to make it ethical and like get around. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
just like they're like, oh,
Because
look.
right now it's
Yeah.
so like, I feel like there's so much in like true crime and entertainment gossip culture that is like so hungry to watch like people have problems. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're so hungry to like feed on other people's tragedy, and it is so sad. But then if these people are profiting off of their own story, like if these people are talking about their own stories, like celebrities need to be in the public eye. Like that is the whole thing. And there are some that choose not to be. Like I always say, I'm like, what's Natalie Portman doing? I literally don't know and I don't care, but she's still in movies.
Yeah.
Whereas if like Stassi Schroeder is releasing a third book, like you're allowed to talk about the things she's writing about herself and discuss them. Like it's not intrusive to read the things that she is writing about herself.
I mean, we just did Jada Pinkett Smith, and I think she's such a good example of a lot of the feedback we've gotten from that episode is I didn't think I'd go in kind of like feeling empathy for her, but when you hear the context of her story, she's a lot more likable. That being said, she did have a line in that book where she was like, on our first date, Will took me on a private jet. And then in parentheses, she goes, and this was back in the day when not everybody had a private jet for weekend getaways. So it was very impressive. And you're like, okay, well, Jada. Jada.
To me, it is still impressive.
That is something nobody made you say. And
You still said
you
it.
stuck to it. And you felt it was important that nobody think you were wrongly impressed by a private jet.
There's like another part
and
of
that
the book
is judgmental.
where she talks about, she's like, I came home and Jaden was painting with charcoals or like drawing with charcoals in the multi-purpose room. It's like just a big room we have. We call it the ballroom, but it's not a ballroom. It's just like a big room for events. It's like not that fancy. And I was like, a big room for events. You just like host charity events. You have a room in your house that's like large enough to host large-scale events.
Yeah.
Insane.
To many, that would be fancy.
And no one made you write, it's not that fancy. You wrote that.
We were just talking about this, how we feel like we are digging through the trash a little bit, but like not for us, like what our conversation, but
Our trash.
We were like talking about how like some celebrities don't like they get like too out of touch.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I was saying it's like, what do you expect? It's like, how could you not be out of touch? Like, I think even like, Ellen DeGeneres, for example.
Oh my God.
Canceled, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like people were like, she's so generous and kind and like just such a good person. And I'm like, you cannot be that rich for that long and that famous for that long and be nice. You just I'm hoping that I won't be at 80. I'm hoping I'm a fucking out of touch bitch.
I hope I write a book someday about how like, you know, how annoying it is when your driver is late.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Prince Harry of it all. He's like, you don't even understand. I couldn't even be poor if I wanted to be because I get so much state funding. Yeah. And you're like, no, that's so hard. And I get that. I mean, half of his book was about how much he loved being in the Afghanistan war and how he was so pissed because he wasn't allowed to be on the ground killing people. And also, it's not even like hand-to-hand combat. Like, he was like mad he couldn't fly the planes that like released the bombs on Afghanistan villages because it put the other British soldiers at risk because he was such a, like, if they found out where he was, they would target them specifically. And he's like, so then they said all I could do was like push papers around in an office, and that's not really war. I want to be in there killing people. And so that sucked for me because half of his book is about how much he loves murder and how mad he is that because he's too famous to get in there and murder like a regular old high school dropout.
Wow.
And you really are. And he's like, I love this country so much. I want to be out there like in the danger zone. And you're like, well, what if you know what I mean? I think probably the back end is equally important, but to him it's not exciting. And he's like pissed that he doesn't have the right to like fly warplanes. And you're like, I don't know, man. Sorry.
Right. That is so, because you have but how could he, even we were like talking about Taylor Swift, it's like, you're already, you're rich kind of growing up, you've got some money, then you're immediately put into like millionaire stardom, fame. Every room you walk into, every person like accommodates for you. Never would speak up for, if you're rude, no one's going to say anything. How are you able to learn? I'm being a real apologist, but how are you able to learn what's rude? I learned what's rude from someone going, oh, you shouldn't say that to someone. Yeah. But it's like when no one says that to you.
Through consequences, but I think like, I knew like this very rich girl. I always use her as an example because it was the first time I saw it up close. And there was a comedian where all of her friends were on her payroll or like needed something of her. Yeah. And when you're in a position where you need something for someone or your money is dependent on, I mean, the Selena Gomez assistant friend, anytime somebody, like when there's a group of people and you have to stay friends with one to stay in the group, that person has more power. Yeah. Like, because a lot of times it's not just walking away from your friend, it's walking away from your job, it's walking away from your community, it's walking away from your, like, it's like.
From the vacations, from the everything.
And like also, nobody's coming with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I knew a girl who was very rich and everyone lived in the apartment she bought and she fucked all of their boyfriends and even one of their girlfriends. And it was the one time she ever seemed to be gay. Like it was like she only fucked one girl and it was this girl's ex. But, if you were to ever get upset with her about that, it meant that, well, then you have to move out of her apartment, but no one else is moving out. And so now you've lost your group. Now you've lost where you live. Now you've lost all your friends. And you just either had to suck it up or start anew. And like that's why she never learned to not fuck other people's exes.
Right, because there's no consequences.
Yeah.
I always talk about, so people always write in about like celebrities who like supposedly smell bad. And apparently there's a lot. There's apparently a lot of celebrities who smell bad.
Harry. Styles famously is so stinky.
Yeah.
I love that.
I know.
Because no one's going to say.
And that's I don't think you would love it if you saw it. I've heard
I don't love it. Like, I love knowing that. I don't love that, like, I want to sniff that. I mean, I love that, like, I want to tell people that.
Yeah. Like, I love that. Like, that's good information that I love.
That I'll use somewhere.
And I think it's, like, twofold. I think it's one, like, who the fuck would ever tell Harry Styles you smell bad? Like, who in his life is being like, hey, maybe try a prescription deodorant. You know what I mean? Like, no one is saying that to him. And then the second thing is that I think that this is probably broader for, like, a lot of celebrities. Think about, like, when you get professional hair and makeup done and you're like, oh, my God, I look so fucking good. I'm, like, not going to wash this off for, like, a little bit. You know what I mean? And you're, like, wake up and you have, like, kind of good next day makeup. Like, you don't wash your face the next day. Yeah. I kind of feel like they shower way less because they're like, well, I'm getting hair and makeup done. So, like, I don't need to shower at home. I'm getting groomed. But you're like, but you're not getting hygiened. You're just getting groomed. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think that celebrities are, like, hot people who try comedy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they're just so beautiful that you're like, no one's going to tell you that this shit sucks. Yeah. So you stay.
People are just, like, happy to have you around. We're in, like, a garbage basement full of literal, like, bottom-feeding trolls. And so when someone beautiful walks in, everyone's like, oh, my God, look at you here with us. We love that.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Ashley got roasted so bad yesterday by, like, a stranger on the street who was so pretty. I was like, that's fine.
Yeah. I was like, okay. We were watching the marathon, And she had run a marathon before, and I had run a marathon before, and I didn't even want to tell her what my time was because it was slow. I just wanted to finish a marathon. Okay, I'm accomplished and I'm better than a lot of other people.
You are.
And she ran fast, like literally like a Boston Marathon qualifying time fast. And she's like, I was pretty proud of myself, and I'm like, yeah, that's like a notably fast time.
Yeah.
And then Claire told her my time, and she was like, oh my God, did you fall asleep? And I was like, okay, I mean.
Oh my God.
Listen.
That is so mean.
I finished it.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of like, it's not the same thing of where like someone is just so like, everything comes like easy or something. I have my thighs like rubbed together, and I was hooking up with this girl one time who like took a pair of my pants, and like where my thighs had rubbed together, the pants had rubbed like,
yeah,
holes.
they rubbed
And
thin.
she was like, what is this? What happened here? Like, and I was like, my
What
thighs,
happened here is
she has no
friction, bitch.
She has like a thigh gap, so she genuinely was confused, and she's like, "Oh, that's never happened to me." And I'm like, "I don't." So that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
You're just like, sorry, I guess you don't have my problems.
Yeah.
You know, you're too pretty to deal with that. But yeah,
So, what is your favorite memoir you've done? You've
Yes.
talked about.
I don't know. It's kind of like if you went to an accountant and you're like, who's your favorite taxes you've seen?
You don't think
No,
you
there are
would
some
have
that are
one?
really
if I knew
good.
someone
I
was
have
definitely like
favorites.
selling drugs, I'd be like, probably them, because this is obvious crime unfolding.
Okay. Well, now
Yeah.
that you've okay, so now I have to answer the question.
Can I say I have favorites? I think one of the best ones that I recommend to people is actually Molly Shannon,
I've heard so many people be like, it is the best book I've ever
because
read.
I
It's
think
so
it
good.
hits everything. Like, it has celebrity stuff. It has like late in the game fame, so she is actually like well formed. I think it has childhood tragedy, and it's like funny too.
Yeah.
So it's like, what more do you need?
I for a long time didn't read it because I bought it at Barnes and Nobles.
Hell yeah.
And then I don't know why I said that as if we're sponsored by Barnes and Nobles, but I love Barnes and Nobles. But
literally an indie bookshop at this point. If you're
Yeah.
not Amazon, I'm like, please shop at Barnes and Noble.
we need to support them. No, but I got it there. But then people were like, they were like, the first chapter will rip your heart out. And so I never read it. But then other people were like, I would tell people that, and they're like, oh no, the rest of the book was like really fun. Like, it's not like that bad. Like,
No, I mean, it is like a pretty tragic first chapter, but like the rest of it is like pretty good.
I think the creepiest episode that you guys, I know that's like a weird thing.
No, I love that.
I
Like,
love
when-
that we have creepy episodes.
Well, like a celebrity is like an anonymous, because I kind of like to psychoanalyze people. Selma Blair.
yeah, that was a creepy episode.
I need to know what's going on.
Creepy is a really good word for her. I just saw her. I think she was in one of those weird Kathy Griffin TikToks. Have you seen it going around where Sia is like
Where
singing?
she's singing at the dinner party.
And they have like the weirdest group of D-list actors of all. Like, you're just like, and then Kathy Griffin will take the photo with everybody at the dinner party, and she kind of places them in order of importance to society. So it's like the unknowables on the outside, but then like the Modern Family guys on the inside, and it's very much like it's very much there in order of fame. And I think Selma Blair was there.
Wow.
And
On
I
the
was just like,
edge.
Selma. I've been like seeing a lot of her. She's one of those people who's like a celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like, there's like, to me, there's influencer, and then there's the celebrity. You know, one of the biggest celebrity to me is Amber Tamblyn, a celebrity that only other celebrities can see.
Yeah.
And then I think Selma Blair is one of those where I'm like, I think America has forgotten about her, but for some reason, like Anna Wintour has not.
Can I tell you what I hypothesize? Okay, so I know this person who I know from like childhood, but like she's a parent, and like she will always like just say these like kind of guilt trippy things
Yeah.
that like, oh, that's so wonderful that everyone was hanging out. I love that people are still spending time together, and you know, even though I'm not a main part of the group, I would love to be in the group sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like just that type of thing. And I bet you Selma Blair is like that. Like I bet you she sees a dinner party happening and like is like very complimentary and like is very like, well, I have to be invited now, because if I'm not invited, I'll like make you feel really fucking weird about it. And I'm famous enough that I can like kind of guilt trip you in an uncomfortable way.
Can I say I wonder, and this is not to throw him under the bus, but another great memoir is Andre Leon Talley,
Yeah.
who was an editor at Vogue and best friends with Karl Lagerfeld. And this is not to knock him at all, but I do wonder if Selma Blair has what he had, which is when you are best friends with like 3 or 4 key people.
Yeah.
You'll be their plus one to everything. So you're not the popular person, but you're 3 popular people's best friends, and then also they know that through you they can get to them. By like,
Yeah.
You have the Frankie Grande effect. Yeah.
And yeah, there's also so many people I think who are like in like close to great success and fame who like have a lot of value in having an entourage, a crew, etc. And these people are very good at sniffing out like who needs a second.
Yeah.
Like who needs a second in command, and they like will follow them around and like become their opener in comedy or become like their ass kisser forever. And then they can forge somewhat of a career off of it because like they know who needs to have like a yes man around them, and they like show up early, like before
and that's
this person can reasonably have an entourage.
But like to get back to what we were talking about earlier, like why celebrities can't ever learn accountability, it's because somebody's already sniffed them out and been like, no, you were so right.
Yeah. So good. Yeah.
Dude, this is why me and Ashley will literally never be successful. We can't even be nice to each other.
I know.
And we're like on the same team. We can even kiss each other's ass.
When someone gives me a compliment, I'm always like, oh my God, that was so weird. Who is that person?
Your next episode is just being like, it's supposed to be Celebrity Memoir Book Club, but it's you just talking about someone who complimented you.
Yeah, like, ew, what's wrong with them? What happened to their childhood?
Yeah.
I know. I'm always like, oh my God, that person has really bad taste.
I feel like it is impossible to know. Also, there's like so many people who like I know are like they've like been canceled for something that like is truly cancelable. Like they've done something bad. But you go to a party, they're there. I don't care what
Louis
they've
CK?
done. I mean, literally, it could be the worst person you've ever thought of. They're at a party, they're surrounded.
Yeah.
50 people around them. Like, I'm like, what? Still, everyone's surrounding them. You're like, what do you think they're gonna do for you? Like,
it's so
book you in a movie? Like, they can't do anything for you.
It's just people are like so attached to these like random hierarchies, and they like don't know what to do about it. And I will say, I feel like we've both worked on accepting compliments, but like there was someone that I was talking to recently who like really stresses me out because I feel like he doesn't compliment from a place of like actually enjoying what we do. He compliments from a place of like trying to attach in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not like I like talking about like, you know what I mean? It's not, oh, that was funny. It's like, oh yeah, and if you ever like need like it's this like weird thing where it's like attempted exchange of favors and compliments, and I'm like, no, I don't want to have an exchange. I want to have a conversation.
Yeah. Do you find we were talking about before you guys got here, talking about how like it just feels like I was talking about Ellie Kemper's memoir. Did you ever read?
No,
You don't have to read it.
Of course not. I never thought that would be like a light one. That'd be like if we had two heavies in a row, we'd be like, and now we do an Ellie Kemper.
Yes, because it is, and I found it really interesting because it is not a must read in any capacity. I read it years ago, and I still am like
years ago.
So,
when did Ellie Kemper write a memoir?
It was like 3. Well, I read it. I remember it was pre-pandemic. And I read it. I was working delivery for a restaurant, so I read it down like in the basement. So I guess it was like 5 years ago, and it was the most boring book I've ever read because she had a great life. Like her life was
she's
great.
super rich from St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
I used to do a literal joke about that, about how I know I've had an easy life because I can't remember any of it.
Yes.
And I'm like, trauma
really
is unique.
bad life.
Yeah, like, or you've blacked out, but I'm like, all happy Christmases kind of end up the same. You know what I mean? It's like not that interesting.
Like
I guess there's that Russian novelist who says that like all happy families are happy in the same way.
Yes, where she like had a full chapter. Where clearly they were like, you need another chapter. She wrote a full chapter about she went to a restaurant and they didn't give her capers, which the salad was supposed to have. And she like felt so bad sending it back. But then she was like, I need to have capers. This is a full chapter. There's like
this
20
is the Tori
pages.
Spelling of it all.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Who's Tori Spelling?
Oh my God, Tori Spelling is the most memoirist there's ever been.
Oh my God.
She's like, she was on Beverly Hills 90210, the original.
Okay.
Her dad is Aaron Spelling, the creator of that show and every other show from that era. Like Charmed, everything.
Yeah.
And then she just is a rich girl who then starred on a hit TV show and then like never really got other acting jobs. Now she's in like Hallmark movies, and then she married this guy named Dean, and they met on like a Lifetime movie or something like that. And they were both married or with other people, but then they like cheated on each other, whatever. Then they had reality shows, like a couple of them, Tori and Dean in Love, where they renovated an inn, just a bunch of different reality shows. And then now she's written like 5 memoirs. And also she like got almost no money from her dad. So her dad was like a bazillionaire from creating all of the most popular TV shows of the 90s.
Well, her dad died, but her mom hates her. They have like this huge public feud. Candy Spelling.
Yeah.
Candy.
And
that
like
can never be good if your mom's name is Candy.
Her and her mom and then Dean's ex-wife, they all like communicate through memoirs. It's crazy.
That actually sounds that's not like Ellie Kemper's.
Yeah.
Ellie Kemper's was
Oh,
this
Tori.
sounds right up my
But
alley.
Tori has
Tori.
She has like 5 memoirs, and she'll like just write because she needs money because she was raised
I see.
insanely rich, and then her dad left her like I think $800,000, which like
No,
is
but if you're raised rich, that's probably not too much.
yeah, like it's for me an insane amount of money for someone who was like raised in I think like the biggest single family home in California. It's not that much.
Yeah.
And so she went through it in like a year.
Man, yeah, but it was like it's like there's no Ellie Kemper didn't even get cut off. Well, first of all, she moves, and I remember being so mad because I just auditioned for a UCB house team.
Yeah.
God, and I didn't get on, and I was so upset. And I was reading Ellie Kemper's book, and it literally is like her childhood is perfect, everything is great. At least from what she talks about in the book. But so she has this, she talks about how she gets on a UCB house team immediately. Which, like, now to me, I would not care, but at the time that really cut deep.
I have a really
I got
hard
that.
time with celebrities who are like, so at 18, who did we just read where it's just like, even Jada actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, we just did Jada, but I think she was on some sitcom like within 6 months of moving out to, they like created a role around
She was
her.
like 19 or 20 by the time she was on.
She did 1 year of college and said, I don't think there's anything for me to learn here. And then she moved out to LA, and like within 3 to 4 months, she went in for a bit part audition. They said, you're not a bit part, you're a character. And they wrote her
Yeah.
That was like Ellie Kemper. She immediately got cast on The Office. She was like or whatever show. I don't remember if it's The Office, but some show she immediately got cast on. And then, but I was like, what is this biography? This is like reading your Wikipedia page. This whole every chapter is just like, and
we
here's the
call it
next.
that. I'd say like the Dave Grohl's men do a lot of, we call it the Wikipedia biography, where
Oh,
I
really?
go, if I had your first person perspective had nothing to do with this book.
Yeah.
Everything I learned about this, I could have learned from somebody else in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are so many, and it is frustrating to read, especially because they'll like say they worked hard, because you can't not say that because then you sound like obnoxious.
Yeah.
But they obviously didn't work hard because what they've achieved, like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying they don't work, but like,
But that's
like
what it
Janice
is. They'll
Dickinson,
say-
right? She like, she's one that we reference all the time because in her book, she was like, I was like every day going door to door, every modeling agency, like knocking on doors, like putting in the footwork and the groundwork and the whatever. And then finally in 6 months, I was signed to a major agency. And I was like, 6 months?
But that's
6
what it is.
months.
I think sometimes people say I worked hard, but what they mean is I worked at all. I'm like,
Yeah.
like, because anything where you're like doing outside art stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, is like extra. Like, I guess you didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
But like and I think we were just talking about before how there's a lot of like, and I'm sure there's nice ones and mean ones and all of the above, but there's a lot of people who like went viral on the internet at like 16, never worked a job, never like have had a job. So then you see these people who are like, someone made a TikTok the other day that was like me watching an influencer's day in the life work vlog. And it's just like errands that like everyone else is running. It's like you taking your dog to the vet is not a work thing.
I love when they'll post like a to-do list on Instagram stories, and the to-do list will be like, you know, go to the gym,
Meditate.
get a wax, meditate, like get nails done. And it's just like, do laundry. And you're like, this is errands.
Yeah.
Like everyone does that. Everyone else also does this. Like what? So I think, you know, you see that a lot where influencers get very like, oh, okay, I work hard. And I'm always like, I feel like I work super hard, but nothing compares to when I was like in a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
12 hours a day at 6 a.m. Like,
Well, that's
with
when we
my
were at each other's.
period.
I mean, that's why we were at each other's throats, because we were both working full time, doing stand up, doing the podcast, doing this thing.
Yeah.
like nobody was making us do
we
it.
weren't working
but
full time doing stand up. We had like full time, like 9 to 6 day jobs. And then we would do stand up, and then we would podcast at my house at like 10 p.m.
Not that, I mean, I don't know. We weren't at war or whatever, but like it was like nobody
wasn't
like
the
you were no
hardest.
Harry.
literally nobody was
Prince
begging
Harry.
us to do that. In fact, we couldn't get anybody to listen or support.
Yeah.
That was the big problem. The minute people were asking us to do it, we were able to quit our job. But
It feels like evolutionary. It feels like something because I always think about when I was doing improv, and like I laugh so much now because seriously, when I did not get on a UCP Herald team, it like made me wish I was dead. And I was like, my life is over. And it's so funny looking back, but it was like something really in me made that feel so important. Or like even
like how I used to feel about JFL.
I
Yeah.
mean, but right. Or like
Yeah.
There
or
are
like,
people who I have like wished violence towards because they like wouldn't book me on like a bar show.
Yes, and I would be like so stressed. I remember I broke up with a girlfriend I had one time. We weren't going to work anyways, but I like broke up with her because I just done a improv show at the bottom of a bar where I was too young to even, I had to have someone with me the whole time. I wasn't allowed to drink water while I was there because I was too young to be there. And there were 3 people in the audience who were another improv team that was also going to be performing. And I literally broke up with my girlfriend. I was like, I am too busy. Like, I am grinding right now. Like, I am like really doing it. And
That's
it's
how
like,
I felt about one of my exes. I was like, I would like take a night off from stand up, and then he would like not like he'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym after work, and I would like freak out because I was like, I'm literally not. I like didn't sign up for this open mic because I thought we could have time together tonight, and I like am like risking my entire career for you.
The winter before the pandemic, I had like a full-on nervous breakdown because there's this thing called JFL, which is like a comedian draft almost, for those of you who don't know.
Just for laughs.
Yeah, up in Montreal, and they have like faces to watch, or new faces, people to watch or whatever. And getting it seemed like the only way to be successful. And I had somebody who said they'd be willing to send a tape for me. Like a bigger comedian was like, I'll pass your tape along. And so I became obsessed with getting this tape. And with every attempt at getting the tape, I got more and more insane and neurotic to the point where I remember I like was calling in every favor I had for people that could book me on shows so I could get this 5-minute tape. I called my dad from New Jersey. I was like, you need to come to this show so that you can like hold my phone. Yeah. And I was like, I did an older comedian, his wife let me do her show, and I could tell she was like, who is this fucking 28? Like, and I was up there like trembling. Like I got so in my head, I was trembling, and then I remember I got on the F train after, and I just was hysterically sobbing. And then 2 weeks later, everybody like the Italian hospital system collapsed, and I was just like, I've been dead for 2 weeks. I literally was like, I don't have anybody left. I've burned every bridge. I couldn't even get the tape. I don't even think I sent anything because I was like, I have nothing. And I look back and I go,
burned every bridge.
Like, what was I? And then you look at that shit and you go, what does it even get you? The joke of it is once you have any sort of stability, I think, in comedy, you're able to look at JFL and you go, oh, the only people who get JFL are people who already had shit going on. Like, JFL does not beget the stuff. JFL is like the cherry that the stuff begot.
But that's like everything now. I mean, I could rant for hours. It feels like so, like, I will meet with like, I mean, even like last year, I'll meet with an agent who's like not a big agent. And they're like, okay, well, I need you to have like done a lot of professional work. I need you to have Instagram followers, like over 1 million if possible. I'm like, who do
I
you?
love it when they say that. They go,
time.
could you try to get like 100,000 Instagram followers? And you're like, oh, yeah, sorry. The thing I was trying not to.
Yeah,
you're right.
You're like, I did want that. They just haven't come yet. Like every time we have any meeting with anyone, like we'll finally have a meeting and they'll be like, oh, and if you could like make all of this stuff more. I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely thought that like the reason you called us for this meeting is because the amount of stuff we had was like enough finally, but it's should, so you're right, it should be more.
And it is like everybody who's ever been above me that's like been like, oh, you don't even want an agent. They don't even do anything for you. And I'm like, easy for you to say you have one. And now, but it's
give me yours.
And then you get one and you're like, oh, this is actually not helpful at all.
Yeah. I mean, truly. It just feels like now everywhere wants you to like it used to be like, I pitched a, like girls. I pitched a thing, whatever. Now
and they
like,
made it.
Okay, can you make it? Make the first season. Maybe we'll watch it. I'm like, what? You need everything like fully handed to you now.
I will say I do try to like look at it from the opposite perspective of I was in the system of people waiting to get like the gatekeep system of I was hoping one booker at one club thought I'd be funny enough for late night who thought I'd be funny enough to have a TV show. And then you look at those people, who was it? It was Jerry Seinfeld. It was Ray Romano. It was just like white dudes. And I do think the democratization of comedy, like TikTok. I mean, I've been following you on Twitter for years. I do think the idea that you can like get online now and just like make it on your own. I'm on both sides where I like sometimes I look at these people who blow up and I go, you'll never be able to do a live show. It's so different when you're not in your bedroom. But at the same time, I'm like, there is something about very not enlightening, what's empowering about being able to say like, nobody wanted us.
Yeah.
Until maybe
they
4 weeks ago.
They actively told us. They said, stop.
We begged, we pleaded. And then we get on TikTok and everything we have is from promoting ourselves on TikTok. And I do think it has to go, like I always look at someone like Rachel Sennett, who I've watched since the open mic days.
Oh, yeah.
She was hustling on Twitter at the same time as she was writing the sketches at the same time as she was like, it is helpful in addition to finally be able to say, I don't care if you think I'm not funny. I will just start in my bedroom.
No nepotism. Like we were talking in the last episode, we had guests and we were talking about how it's like now everything is so nepotism. It's just like everybody you see in a movie is like a celebrity's son or daughter or whatever. And it's like the internet, it's like you don't have to live in LA or New York. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be anything. You just, if you're funny, then you can do it,
totally.
you know?
And it's so easy, I feel like, to get caught up in like who is like skyrocketing to the top and beating you because they did one thing, and then it seems like the industry was like, oh yeah, we'll pick you. But then you look at the longevity of it. Like I feel like, because it sounds like you guys have been like, you know, working on shit and like making shit for a bit, like from the pre-pandemic days of like auditioning for UCB Herald teams, like you see how many people like randomly like leapfrog you, and then you leapfrog them. You're like, oh, it's just like a long game of like, what can I make that I like and I'm like excited about and happy with?
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that I've like, I remember seeing them get like a huge chance where I was like, that should have been me. And then now I'm like, oh, because they leapfrogged and didn't like get the reps in to like know what they wanted and what they were doing, they like completely flail. So, you know, it's just like always. There's always like there are so many people. There are very few people where I'm like, oh, I could never beat them. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Because it's a long game and I don't plan to stop for a bit.
Yeah. No, exactly.
What was like a memoir you were like, sorry.
Wait, I was going to ask the
No,
question.
go ahead.
I wanted to ask the question, just like what celebrity, after reading all these memoirs, is the most unwell?
Summer was a good guess. I feel like, who would you say? Can I look at my phone real quick
Unwell
to like
and
look
maybe
through the names?
Yeah.
Unwell
And they've realized it. Maybe they got sober, or then unwell and they just do not realize there's something wrong.
I mean, like, I feel like Yolanda Hadid is a really good example of someone who's just like bananas unwell, because
really
she is
scary.
literally unwell in that she has given herself medical problems, and then she is like unwell in the way that she is like an advocate for demanding people recognize a disease that she invented. You know what I mean?
Do you think she has Munchausen's?
Yes.
Oh shit, that happens to celebrities?
I
thought
think
it was
so.
just
Well,
that
we
girl.
think
Well, okay,
we've
so here's
hypothesized
our-
about her a lot.
Here's my psychological breakdown of her. I think it is hard to be somebody who is like loved for your beauty and then become an adult woman. And if you look at her, so what Muhammad Hadid did to her was pretty fucked up. He was like cheating on her nonstop, and she lived like a very monk-like life after that. She was like very celibate, did not date. And then when the kids got older, she started dating David Foster, and a lot of her identity was wrapped up in that. And you can see the minute they got married, she started getting sick, and she takes a lot of pride in being like somebody who never needs help or has to ask for anything. And then suddenly she gets sick and like needs to ask for help.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things she was doing to herself will make you ill. Like she would put herself on a 60-day antibiotic IV drip, and that is something that like because I had a lot of doctors that I was like calling for, and they were like, that's something that we would do. It's a lot like chemo, where it's like, it could make you better if you have something that's wrong with you, but it will also get you sick, because we're killing all the bacteria in your body, and your body needs some of those. And then she's constantly going on these cleanses, and she's constantly doing these things, and she's like, that whole worm in her poop stuff is completely made up. There's only one doctor in the world who thinks it's actually worms, and it's this guy who's been like thrown out of Russia. And every other doctor in the world is like, what you're doing is it's like the insides of your intestines. Like, have you ever used too much Listerine and then like the inside of your mouth kind of comes off?
Yeah.
It's
It's like
but
the
for your
shedding of a membrane. It's not a worm.
Yeah.
But because she keeps being like, oh, look, I have a worm in my stool, and so now I have to do more cleanses, she's never getting nutrients.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she's like keeping herself quite, like, it's not good to constantly be fucking with your body and taking she's doing
Like,
a lot of things
your
that are
body
fucked up.
does have systems that are supposed to keep itself good. Like some people are off balance, and that isn't something that needs to usually be fixed by like intervention and medicine. But like for the most part, when it comes to like detoxing and cleanses and this and that, like that's what kids do.
Well,
so, like,
I get so annoyed on the internet where it'll be like every day I feel like there's a new video. It's like reasons why I started drinking a gallon of chicken broth every morning.
And I'm like, love those women when they like come
gut
through.
health.
When they're like, listen, I've been eating nothing but grapes
And I
and
can't
chlorophyll every morning for 6 months, and I've never felt better. And then like a year later, they'll be like, I was actually deeply unwell, and that's why I'm on an all-protein diet. I actually, that entire time, I didn't poop once, and I didn't have a dream, and I was also waking up in the middle of the night with bloody sweat. And they're like, but I feel better than I've ever felt, and this is actually the diet. If you only eat protein and that's it, and then you sleep for 2 hours at a time every 4 hours, that's actually how you find wellness, and I've never felt better.
1 year later, they come on, they go, so actually last year was the worst I've ever felt.
But this is like the dog foods. Have you seen the raw diet?
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Every vet is like, because I have a tiny Chihuahua who does not
dying?
need. Well, she's old. She's an elderly Chihuahua, but I see these videos that are like, what I feed my all raw dog. I feed them one chicken heart. I feed them a duck head.
And the
I feed
vets
them a
are like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're like, stop doing this. Like, this is not good for you. Not good for the dog. Because I was like, oh, should I give my dog blueberries? And my vet was like, well, you could give your dog one blueberry. Like, your dog is so small. Like, the amount that would be in one blueberry, it's just like, there's no. And it's like dog food.
My dog loves blueberries. She
cute.
she loves. I'll like get a little thing of blueberries and we like sit on the couch and we split it.
Is she small?
No. Well, yes.
She's
She's small, but like she's still like a large dog mix that like is small. She's like only 35 pounds, but like a pit bull boxer or whatever.
Very cute.
She's very cute.
Yeah, but they're like you don't need. And obviously there's bad dog food, but my vet was like, dog food is made, like, these are domesticated animals. Like, your Chihuahua is not a wolf. Like, you don't need, this is what the dog food is made to do. Like, you can add some, like, fish oil or whatever, but people, I think it's the same with health where everyone's, like, trying to outsmart, like, they've cracked the code.
It's like QAnon for your body.
Yeah. Yes.
You're like, you should hear, when you hear footsteps, it's like, it's a horse. It's not a zebra. And they're like, my body is a zebra.
Yeah.
You know, they're like doing IV drips, like, every morning. And you're like, I don't know, your electrolytes are shot. Your pH after 60 days of your antibiotics, your pussy is making yeast. Like, it's like,
Yeah, like I give my dog packaged, just like the dog food from the dog store.
Yeah.
And then like, sometimes I'll like give her snacks and like fruits and whatever, like little powders and shit that like you can do. But like her vet is like, if you want to add that, you can. But like what you're feeding her is like a complete nutrition meal. And like with the gut health, with like all these things, people will be like, oh yeah, your body, like you need this in order to balance your hormones. And it's like, no, your body is balancing its hormones. That's like the point of all the glands, like all the things. And if your body isn't balancing its hormones, like a thing you learned on the internet isn't going to balance it. You need to like go to a person whose job that is. And then and so then Yolanda Hadid, we hypothesized that like she like stopped getting as much attention and like needed something to like lure people back in, and that was illness. Like she liked having people like come check on her. She liked having people, you know what I and it like
by the end of that book, she had been diagnosed with chronic Lyme. Her daughter had been diagnosed with chronic Lyme. Her son had been diagnosed with chronic Lyme. Her mother had been diagnosed with chronic Lyme. And her friend who had just gone through a divorce, who had been very lethargic, also it turned out she had chronic Lyme.
And it's not like the flu. You can't like catch it. It's like a
no.
Yeah,
it's chronic.
Wow,
so
it's chronic.
That's crazy. And then who's someone you read their book and you're almost shocked that they like turned their life around?
Shania Twain.
Really? Oh yeah, her.
Her book sucked because I do believe she wrote it herself and it feels incoherent. But she had one of the craziest lives in the world.
Her childhood was like so. Like, I mean, just like very, like poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty
like,
to the nines.
Her and her older sister had a biological father that apparently the mother had to flee from because he was like assaulting the older sister, who was like 3. And then she remarried a man who was like indigenous Canadian. And so they lived like on like, I want to say like a reserve situation, but he became an alcoholic and like was very abusive. And then he ultimately like assaulted Shania. And then she had 3 little brothers and her parents like died in a freak car accident. And so at 22, she had to adopt the 3 younger brothers and take care and raise all of them. And they were living in like a cabin with no electricity or running
like
water.
Like a dirt floor.
Out in the middle of the Canadian wilderness so that she could do this review in
so that she could perform. She was like performing in a review at like
a resort. Like a ski resort and raising these 4 boys. And then like somewhere there, somebody was like, oh, you're a star. And they took her down to Nashville. And that's where that guy, Rhett, or what's his awful name? Mutt
Lang. No, so she did an album with another group. And then she met Mutt Lang, who had made, I think, Back in Black by AC/DC. He was like a big producer. And that is who made
They got
Come
married
On
after
Over.
6 months and he became her full-time producer.
Yeah.
And that's like when she made all of her bangers.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, Shania Twain, Man, I Feel Like a Woman, incredible song.
And
nobody
then-
gives credit to Any Man of Mine, which is like one of my favorites.
Really good.
It's so good.
And then he moved her to like Sweden and she had no friends and like she was pretty isolated, and then he like killed her horse. It was like a whole thing. And then he cheated on her with her best friend and then married her best friend, and then she married the best friend's husband.
They like switched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm reading this. This sounds incredible.
Or listen to the episode.
Yeah. I mean, that'll probably be what I'll do.
Okay, then then I have a follow up. Who is without a doubt the worst person, and not like they're
A man.
It's definitely a man.
Well, like but not like just like when someone's kind of annoying, like objectively the worst.
Okay,
yeah.
so I mean,
I would say
all of the men admit to rape in their books in a way that's like.
In a way that is like a joke. They'll be like, oh my God. And then I like Anthony Kiedis, like, listen, like, but like he will be like, oh, I was, like hooking up with this girl. And then it turns out there was like a missing person. Like she came with us to the next city. And then her dad filed a missing persons report because he was the chief of police in the town that I took her from. Whoa. And I didn't know she was 13. And I'm like,
also he dated, who's that other one?
Ione Skye
when she
was
like
16 and he was like 30 or something. And this, the kid that went on tour with him, he's like, oh, and then I found out her dad had filed a missing persons report because she was like a missing minor. And so then I like hooked up with her one more time and sent her back to her dad. And it's like, ew,
and
bro.
they like love, I mean, Tommy Lee, all those old rock and roll guys are like, the funniest thing about going on tour is when you pissed on all the women in the front row.
Oh, Steve O loves to like talk about it. He's like, yeah, it was so disgusting that these women would just like let me piss on their tits. And you're like, oh, okay.
That is insane.
I got in so much trouble on TikTok. It was like my first time I got a lot of negative blowback on TikTok.
Because we said Steve-O sucks. And everyone was like.
I told this story about Steve-O where his mom was like dying of cancer. And
so his mom had like a aneurysm, I think. Something happened. She was dying of something else, but she was at that point no longer capable of taking care of herself. I think she had a massive stroke and was no longer like physically independent. So his sister like quit her job and like moved back to Florida to be the mom's full-time caretaker, even though Steve-O at that point had no job. Like he went to circus school. Yeah. Like he was like,
that's a job.
And his whole thing was like doing backflips on the internet to try and get in like skateboarding magazines. Uh-huh. And he was like, I'm too busy to take care of mom. I'm doing backflips.
So I guess he was doing Jackass, but it was at the time when he was only making like $200 to do it.
He was not a full-time cast member. He was like a guy that they brought and paid like a couple $100s per episode to do random. So his doing backflips on the internet, he was making his way up.
Yeah. Anyway, so they did something where they brought in an elephant who shit all over the backyard.
Okay.
I'm not okay. You go. You have told this story. You have interrupted me like 8 times, but you tell this.
No, because you're telling it wrong.
Okay, I'm just gonna step away and you tell the whole story.
This is just you're describing what is it called? Best friends? Yeah. You're like this is an elephant.
So he was trying to get on Jackass full time. So he was like bending over backwards to be like, I'm helpful. So they were filming in Florida, and he's like, my mom lives in Florida. We have a house there, so we can film in the backyard at my mom's house. And they filled a kiddie pool full of elephant shit.
Okay, yeah, I was so wrong.
Okay, because it's a little bit different. They didn't just have an elephant shit all over the yard. They specifically filled a controlled area full of shit.
And they planned it, and it was really high production.
But the important part was that nobody cleaned it up. He just ditched it.
And production specifically said, do you want us to clean that up? And he said, no, it's fine.
So they left. The sister was living in that house taking care of the mother. And then the next day, there was like some horrible torrential downpour. So elephant shit got all over the entire neighborhood and everybody like screamed at them. And they like got in a ton of trouble. And we were like, what a bad son. And everybody was like, how dare you say that? You're a cunt. Die.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were like, how dare you blame him? He's sober now and he's reformed.
Oh my God.
It is so funny the things people will get. I don't mean to sound like I'm like anti-cancel. I'm not like the woke people. I'm like, some people should be canceled. But it is so funny some of the things I'll see like a young internet person get like canceled for where they're clearly like, I'm sorry. And it's something just so fun. And then you hear these things where you're like, it'll be like a 40-year-old who's like still famous and they're like married to their 10-year-old daughter.
Anytime we put up a story about a man being bad, people scream at us.
Yeah. I feel like that's what really fucks me up about like what we do. And like when people will be like, oh, why won't you cover this guy? He's an asshole. Like that'd be a fun book. And I'm like, I actually sometimes can't handle it because if we make TikTok videos about it and we like criticize a man in any way, there is so much justification for it. Whereas if we like cover a woman and are like, oh, she was annoying here, they'll be like, yes. She does suck. She's a dumb bitch.
Yeah.
We hate her.
And I would say it's for the canceling thing. I've noticed that like, I mean, it's a lot easier to like cancel women, but I would say canceling does work for people who are mid-tier below.
Yeah.
Cuz like canceling they go after people who care. Like people have given up on canceling Trisha Paytas because they realize that she doesn't care. And when someone like, if you have done something that's cancelable, like obviously you should be someone corrects you. But there's also like some people just want to antagonize someone, like they're on the bandwagon. And so you want a reaction out of someone. So the only people you get a reaction out of are people who care. And you can't really go after like.
It's the Trump effect.
Yeah.
If you don't care, they like you just.
Well, can I say that's the other thing is we'll make these videos being like, okay, here's a literal story from Steve-O's memoir that he tells and he is proud of. Like he thinks this is funny. And then everyone will like flood our comments being like, how dare you fucking try to cancel Steve-O? Like, don't try to cancel him. And I'm like, who's trying to cancel him? Like, I'm not saying you can never support him again. I'm saying this is who you support, FYI.
Yeah.
Like,
it's so scary. I mean, that's like, I always think about Woody Allen because it's so insane to me. I'm like, it literally is crazy. And there are still people like, after all of that comes out and is being talked about, people like who are just like normal, not celebrities that dislike. Like I like Emma Stone, but she's being like, it is an honor to be in another Woody Allen film. I'm like, this is nuts. Like this is actually crazy. I don't know. So it just feel like that. It's like if you're at a certain point, it's just like even if you could think up the worst thing you could think up.
Harvey Weinstein.
I mean,
guess.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like still just like
I knew. Like the thing about the Harvey Weinstein thing is I remember in college this article came out in the New York Post and everybody was so mad so I went to college 2010 to 2014. So this would have been 2014. And I remember there was this article on the front page of the New York Post about this Italian girl. She was like an 18-year-old model who had like been blackmailed or something by Harvey where he was like, I'll only give you a role if you have sex with me. And she went to the police and the police said, okay, in order to take him down, you need to like wear a wire and go back in and get this on tape. And then she did. And then the New York Post article that she was on the front page of was about like what a dumb whore she was just trying to get him in trouble. And like what a manipulative little liar she is. Like what kind of slut wears a wire? Clearly she was in there trying to blackmail him and take advantage of him. And like how sneaky of her, even though she was doing exactly what the police had told her to do. And I just remember being like, okay, but he did it. But
who cares?
The bent of the article was, isn't she such like a conniving little slut that she wore a wire on purpose to get him in trouble?
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, the police told her to. And he did it.
Yeah.
He did the thing
that she said he was going to do.
This is where like a lot of Nepo babies, they get a bad rep when people call them Nepo babies and they're like, no, if they want to use their power for good, like I need like people who are so hard, like established in Hollywood to like speak out about people because
like what
they can't get their careers like taken from them. Like what's that girl
who called out Ellen?
Yes, like Dakota Johnson.
She knows she's like
But did
she's
she
like, what are you
call
gonna
out
do?
Ellen?
Well, she was like,
she said, I invited you to my birthday party. I mean, the fact that we're giving her like that much credit, the fact that like Dakota Johnson is like our perfect little queen, and she's like, all she did was invite Ellen to her party, and that was the big like glass ceiling breaker.
Who's the one recently that she worked with, and she was like, he's never been mean to me.
Oh, Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Or like
she defended Shia LaBeouf recently.
I feel like
crazy.
I feel like Billie Lourd could like really wield some power.
She I think is good. I don't want to say anyone's good, but I feel like she seems good.
She seems like I don't know. If she was not famous, she'd be weird. You know what I mean? So I know that she has that, like, she can call them out. Like, I don't know. We need, like, a Rockefeller. Like, we need like King Princess or something to do it.
Like, what about Andy Cohen? Like, why isn't he doing more? He's a Nepo baby, right?
Because he's fucking the problem.
Yeah.
But what's the girl? I cannot believe I'm forgetting her name from Jurassic Park.
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern is kind of like a nepotism baby who kind of was like, well, I'll play Ellen's. Sorry, I keep talking about Ellen so much on this podcast.
No, you're good. We're good.
She keeps coming up. But she like played her girlfriend or her crush on Ellen.
Yeah.
Because I think she was like, and I think she didn't work for a long time after that. Maybe this is not accurate, but it was like she didn't work for a while, but she was kind of like already like, well, I can take the,
Yeah.
I guess Angelina Jolie speaks out a lot.
Yeah.
She uses her power.
I would love to hear Tori Spelling if she got like right.
Tori Spelling
has no money.
I know. It's
Tori Spelling is living in a motel right now. Did you know that?
With bed bugs.
But it's like,
oh no,
she has like 10 children in a motel.
Yeah,
she's
and
a
like they
refugee
had like a carbon monoxide
Hills.
leak.
They also had not lice, but they had bed bugs. Yeah,
I just said that.
Okay.
Wait, Sarah, I want to know do you have a favorite memoir?
I was gonna say the Selma Blair one was the most shocking because I feel like most people are pretty cut and dry, like narcissists, sociopaths. Steve-O's heart rate never goes above 50. That's why he can do all the crazy shit. Selma Blair, I couldn't figure out because I was like, she's like an alcoholic, and I relate to that because I am 10 months sober. But like, I want to get her body dissected because what you
I thought you were just
read.
gonna say, I want to get her body. I was like, okay.
Not for the alcoholism specifically, because like I just what you guys described, like her being drunk, like during filming Legally Blonde, and like I would have never picked up on that. You know what I mean? I don't know, and she just seems incredibly disturbed.
Yeah.
Yes.
She had like a weird family, and then like she's a weird. Like, she's one of those people who, like, overcorrects in a way where I'm like, oh, well, that's not normal. You know what I mean? Like, she was talking about her, like, issues with food because of her mom. And then remember that one part at the end when she's like, and now my son has a beautiful relationship with food. Together in the backyard, we, like, pick arugula and enjoy every bite.
Her
and I'm
son
like,
is going to kill people.
My God.
Like,
you cannot be like, we have no problems with food because together we share a plate of raw lettuce. Like, that is not...
No, seriously. So she, I feel like, has that thing that you guys read about in Jada's book where, like, you know when you're talking to someone who's, like, has a basic understanding of something and you, like, have to end up agreeing with them, but, like, you know we didn't get to the point?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like some of Blair's, like, I feel like most celebrities come to this, like Jada Pinkett Smith sort of, like, realization where it's, like, how Tupac treated women like whores, and she was like, you know what, maybe he and I understand each other. It's like, no, you guys actually don't understand each other.
Yeah, it's like this weird point of privilege where we can agree to disagree. And something interesting, not to get back on Jada, we just did them recently though, but somebody I know who knows them pretty well is like, the thing with them is they are so rich that they're obsessed with trying to find this like homeostasis of emotions. So they're putting all their money, they think that if you like work hard enough, you can get to this place where you're just like in a lukewarm bath of feelings all the time, that you can like
you're never
calm.
happy nor sad.
But, like you can just feel calm forever, and that's what they're like. That's
There's
what they're trying to get
for
to.
That.
But like that's what they're looking for. They're trying to like I don't know. They're trying to monk themselves into it, and that's like what's so unrelatable is like but it's like it's too high up on Maslow's hierarchy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's like, and I don't mean to not everyone is a sociopath, but like literally that's like the sociopaths don't get anxiety. Like that's why they do this sort of thing. So when you see people who are medicating like Xanax or Ativan all the time, you're creating like anxiety is good. You know, it gives you like a sort of a moral compass. So if you go without, like it sounds like it'd be great, but it truly makes you like
it's like pain, as any pain.
Yeah.
Excessive pain is not good, but like you should know when a stove's hot and you're touching it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. That's wild. There's so
wanna-
many wild celebrities.
Yeah, I do want to read Molly Shannon's book now.
It's really good.
too.
The best books are like not about their fame.
Yeah.
Say Amy.
I was gonna say Amy Poehler's book really made me sad
Yeah, it sucked.
because I love her so much, but it just sounds like
It's just nothing.
She is somebody who's very resentful of being a woman, I think. She really, and I feel bad because like she came up in a comedy in a time where it's like you're funny for a woman, you're a woman comedian, and she's so mad about it. But instead of like leaning into being a woman, she's just like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, she's like a guy's guy. It's like or a guy's girl.
A guy's girl.
A guy's but it's like there were people like that in comedy, where you're like, you're a woman, but you're like more misogynistic than any
She had this
person I've ever
whole
met.
she had this whole chapter about how being a working mother is actually not hard at all.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, relatable.
Yeah.
Like, we're allowed to be like, I miss my kids when I work, but I like working.
oh yeah.
Like,
She
you're
was
allowed
just
to
like,
say
I have a
it.
nanny, and they watch them, whatever. I see them when I see them.
Yeah, it's so sad in comedy when like you meet girls and you're like, oh, thank God, like we can be friends, and they're just like more misogynistic. There was literally a stand-up comedian in LA. Like she was, when I said I was a lesbian, she was like,
Oh my God.
like her entire like body relaxed because like now she realizes I'm not like going.
She
after
said, "Oh, you're boy."
Yeah,
She, like,
yeah,
does
there
not
are
understand.
a lot of comedians
Yeah.
who like female comedians. This is very mean, but like I feel like I've met a couple where I go, oh, it's important to you to be the only woman in this room.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like Mindy Kaling kind of has that disease.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. And like you look at it and you're like, oh, I mean, I feel like it's that whole thing where people like get so mad at, especially someone successful like Mindy Kaling, for not like representing like women and like people of color well. And it's like, well, she
Had to get there first.
she also like the reason she had the jobs she's had is because she like tells white guys that they're the best ones. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not a writer in the writer's room for The Office because you were like challenging the status quo there.
Yeah. I feel like we were saying this before too, but it's like hard where it feels like every person who like to write a biography, you have to like feel like you have to take every sad part of your life, every terrible part of your life. If you want it to, if your life's been like Ellie Kemper's, it's like not very interesting.
Yeah.
But the thing
You
is,
have to, like,
everybody
make it-
has something if they're willing to be honest.
Yes.
But I think in Ellie Kemper, to be honest, is unlikable because she's like running the risk of being sad for herself besides being privileged. But there are people who have had like good lives that can write interesting memoirs.
Also, she could have written a book. She just would have had to be like open about who she is and what her life actually is, and it wouldn't even have to be likable or unlikable. Like,
we just did John Stamos, and his book is so boring because he is so like, what's it like to be the hottest guy of all time? Great. But if you actually read it, something that really came out in his book is about how often he's taken advantage of by older women. And at the last chapter of the book, he has this like throwaway line about how he's doing some speech for some charity that protects children. And he has this flashback where he suddenly unlocks this memory that he was like abused by his babysitter growing up, that he had a teenage babysitter kind of abused him sexually. And you're just like, okay, well, there it is. Like, you have had multiple things in your life where women assume that they can't assault you because you're a man and they're a woman. But like when you were a good-looking teenager and even someone in their young 20s, 18, 19, a lot of women were constantly coming on to you. And I wonder if you'd be willing to like dig into that and see that like actually you didn't like a lot of those times. And like there is a pattern of this. And I mean, I think what Emrata had to do was be like, how do you make being so hot hard? But there is a story to tell there, and I think John Stamos could have done like a female Emrata thing about being like, listen.
But also I was gonna say, you don't even have to make it hard or bad or sad. Like, you can just like honestly tell your stories about like life and dating and like
but
Hollywood.
I think people are like, oh, I can't,
because
they like don't think they can
won't.
do
like
it.
I always reference, I don't think you read it, but like Dolly Alderton is like a British writer, and she wrote a memoir at like age 30 about like mostly about friendship up until the point of 30, and it was about like love and friendship and like how they play, and she was like very vulnerable about her life and her friendships and her relationships, and it is really good, and it's not like tragic, it just is a like frank telling of like dating in the modern age, and it's just like a really good and interesting story. But it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, you just have to be willing to like open yourself up.
But I think people get intimidated because there are so many people who have like I read Trevor Noah's biography.
We're doing that.
We're about to.
I have to go buy it actually after this.
Really good. It was like real. I mean, I don't read a ton, but I do. I went through a biography phase, and I did do Ellie Kemper and then Trevor Noah, which back
you're like,
to back
oh my
was
god,
like, wow.
Ellie, Jesus.
And it did feel like, this is a person who like should write a book. This is like, you've been handed. He has stories that it's just like they're.
You've been handed apartheid just in your lap.
Like literally, you lucky dog. But even just like the stories from him growing up are just so fascinating. He was also like funny and like very much like clearly a kid who wanted to be like an entrepreneur, but lived in like during such a tough time and like such a bizarre time, and lived in a different country from like the people who were primarily reading this book. Like, it was just very different, very interesting. And I think people read that and are like, well, how would I make my little life like that? But I'm like, you don't have to.
We've read, that's the thing, is you don't have to. Just like tell your story. Like, what story do you think is important in your life? Like, you don't have to just like write pages.
Or don't. If you don't think you can come up with something, just don't do it.
I agree with that. But I was going to say, some people I feel like have quite a story, and then they write the stupidest fucking book I've ever read. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm trying to think of, I feel like we've had some where I'm like, wow, this could have been something. Well, and instead, it sucked.
I always see it with one person shows. I always find, I always used to say, I'm like, if I ever say I'm going to do a one woman show, please take me. Which now I'm like, I would totally do one. But I used to be like, never. Because every time I go see one, no matter who it was, and I would see people who were like really famous. I remember I saw one about the girl who played Laura on Little House on the Prairie. She did a one-woman show. It wasn't a bad show or anything. But without fail, they are all about their divorce. Every single one of them is about their divorce.
Well, did you see Jacqueline Novak's?
No.
Okay, that is one of the best things I've ever seen. And that's
it's about her divorce?
No. It's called Get on Your Knees. It's about the first blowjob she ever gave. And I have to say, it's brilliant. It's incredible. It made me want to quit stand-up. It was so good. And it's frivolous, but it's so funny and poignant and universal.
It's so funny.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that, like, when you, like, she talked about a divorce versus blowjob. It's like Munchausen's in a book, where like someone thinks they're suffering. It's like so they just come up with all this random bogus crap.
And that's the most interesting thing, the hardest thing that society would tell me. That's the most interesting thing.
And it gets them attention, and that's like what Munchausen. If you're sick, I get attention. But then there are people who are actually sick.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be sick to be interesting. It's like that three type.
Because that's the thing I didn't like about Emrata's book, is that I felt like she thought that she's not like allowed to speak. And it's not interesting unless it's troubled.
Yeah.
And so I felt like she was like mining her life for tragedy, whereas there is there is difficulties in like being objectified at a young age and like throughout your entire life, and like being kind of like groomed to believe your only value is your body and like all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But the way that she like would take everything and like milk it for all the tragedy it was worth, I was like, for the love of God, some of it must be fun.
Yeah.
Like, why did you start a bikini line if you hate taking pictures of yourself in a bikini this much?
Yeah. And I think that's hot people, like, is it the same in the in the same way they don't know what's genuinely funny because they don't get honest feedback. They don't get feedback on what's interesting because everything is interesting because they're hot. You know, like sometimes I'll have a hot friend who could just say she's talking about nothing, and I'm like, oh my God, people are still listening. Like I would have, if I said this right now, I mean, I'm not hideous, but like men would have checked out like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
That's like, I just went to a while ago, I went to a short film festival, and there was one film that I was like, this is unwatchable because it was beautifully shot, but I don't even know if it was beautifully shot. It was this woman who was just like, she's very skinny, very traditionally attractive, she was beautiful.
It was beautifully person.
Yeah.
Yes, and she just sat there. It was like,
well, that's my thing about photographers who take photos of like the most beautiful. Like, I'm sorry. Oh, you take photos of models? Wow.
Yeah.
I bet that's hard. You made Kate Moss look good. Incredible work.
Yeah, I'm like, take my headshots and see if you're a good photographer.
That's what. Yeah, that's what they should do. I mean, the revolve of it all. I'm like, put me in clothes. Show me looking good. Then I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, what is this shot? It was her in a beach chair, I swear, for 30 seconds. And I was like, but what is this about? Like, what is happening? If I was sitting in this beach chair being filmed, this would
like
not
you're
be in this
so brave.
festival. This would have been, well, I know.
Yeah.
So, wow, what a beautiful film.
I'm not saying that like as a dig.
No, but
like,
truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. But thank you so much for being on our
Thank you.
podcast.
Oh my
This
God,
has been such a
guys for having
treat.
us.
Oh wait, I do have one last question.
Yeah.
Ooh.
If you could tell one celebrity just redo it, like just edit it a little bit more, who would you say?
Probably Shania.
Shania had a great story, and I wish she had had an editor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read that book.
On the other hand, Alec Baldwin did not have a ghostwriter, and I really think that showed who he was better than a professional could have.
Well, because they would have said, we're not putting that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like dictated, like just like
Literally.
written down, yeah.
And it was like you could feel him in his study looking out the window, like thinking he sounded so smart.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so sad. There are some people you read their biographies and you're like, this kind of feels like what I would have written in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And it is very fascinating where you're like, I don't know if I wanted you to have a ghostwriter. Like, I know people like hate on that, but at the same time,
we
I'm like,
love on it.
We love a
We
ghost.
love a
Why would
ghost
they
ride.
be? It's hard to write a book.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why would somebody who's never done it before be able to start with like the hardest thing of all to look at your own life?
Oh my God, remember when that part of Alec Baldwin's book when he was like, I am that squirrel?
Oh my God.
Okay, we have to read it. I
Yeah.
have a bunch I have to
Well,
read.
I want to start with Molly Shannon's and Shania Twain's.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we will listen to the podcast episodes. Actually, where can people find you?
Wherever you get podcasts. We're also Celebrity Memoir Book Club on all socials.
Yay. And if you want to listen to the BCC Club, we are on Spotify. We're here in the Spotify offices today, which we're super excited. That's why we're able to do this with you guys. You guys are New Yorkers.
Yeah.
It's from the New York Spotify offices. And if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much for coming and doing this. We had so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank you for
us.
having us.
Yes. All right. Any last words, Sarah?
No, but thank you.
Bye.
Bye.